The Denver Broncos finally have some good news, and it's much needed. The offseason can be tough, but this bit of positivity is worth holding on to. The Broncos are reportedly set to target a game-changing defensive player in free agency, and that could be a significant addition to the team. There's also promising news about a coordinator that Sean Payton wanted in Denver, and it looks like he's actually on his way. On top of that, we're hearing about compensatory picks coming the Broncos' way, which could further bolster the team's future. There's plenty to unpack here. What's up, buddies? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We cover all AFC West news here on this channel. Sean Payton has talked a lot about how each offseason is like building a puzzle. You have to start with the pieces that are going to make the biggest impact, and from there, everything else falls into place. Building a team is like laying out a puzzle, and no matter how good or bad a season is, you have to rebuild from the ground up. Sean Payton knows that about 40% of the team is likely to turn over each year, but I think for him, this offseason is even more complicated than usual. It's not just about bringing in new pieces. It's about finding the right pieces from multiple sources: free agency, trades, and the NFL draft. That's what makes this offseason so exciting. There are three key areas I believe need an upgrade: tight end, wide receiver, and inside linebacker. Payton is likely taking a strategic approach, looking at all three boxes and figuring out where he can find the best talent to fill those spots. John Elway recently spoke about what he believes the biggest need for Payton is. He pointed to a playmaking tight end who can stretch the field. When you look at the numbers, it's clear why. The Broncos' tight end group had a rough year. As a whole, the tight ends combined for just 483 receiving yards in total. That's a glaring hole in the offense. And it's a position that definitely needs attention if the Broncos are going to be more competitive moving forward. It's wild to think about, but Brock Bowers, the rookie tight end who played with multiple quarterbacks, all of whom weren't exactly top tier, still managed to put up more receiving yards in just 6 games than the entire Broncos tight end room combined for the whole season. And he did it without a great coach and quarterback. That really highlights just how much of a problem the tight end position has been for the Broncos and how desperately it needs to be addressed. I don't see the Broncos getting a top-tier tight end in free agency, and I'm not sure a trade will solve this problem either. There have been some rumors about Kyle Pitts possibly being available, and while the idea of trading for him and using the first-round pick on another position sounds intriguing, I think the draft is the best route to go if we're looking for a game-changing tight end. Right now, there are 2 names that keep coming up: Colston Loveland from the University of Michigan and Tyler Warren from Penn State. Both have their strengths, but they offer different skill sets. Warren is more of the traditional, physical and blocking type tight end. He's built like Rob Gronkowski, big and strong. On the other hand, Loveland is more of a yards after catch guy, faster and more athletic, though he's a bit smaller in size. He's got a ton of potential, and you can see his ability to make plays after the catch on film. When you watch Colston Loveland on screen passes, you can see how much potential he brings to a team like the Broncos, especially with how much Sean Payton loves the screen game. That could be a dangerous addition to the offense. Loveland has that ability to make big plays after the catch, and he's got the kind of skill set that could really complement what Payton wants to do. But then there's Tyler Warren, who some are calling the little Rob Gronkowski. He's an absolute monster, known for his ability to go up and get the ball and his blocking prowess. He's got that Gronk-like physicality, but with great athleticism. I'd love to see him on the Broncos, but unfortunately, I don't think he'll be available at pick 20. If somehow he is, though, the Broncos absolutely need to pull the trigger. Safety is another area that needs to be looked at. One player who stands out as likely to be cut this offseason is the safety P.J. Locke. When it comes to his performance in zone coverage, especially towards the end of the season, he became a liability. Opposing teams targeted that area, and it showed, from Jameis Winston and beyond. It's clear that changes are needed, but I'm not thrilled about the idea of using the 20th overall pick in the draft to pick a safety. That's why I love this recent report about the Denver Broncos targeting Talanoa Hufanga, an absolute standout safety from San Francisco. The 49ers have been paying everyone: George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, and soon Brock Purdy, which leaves them with limited financial flexibility. While they reportedly love Hufanga and are reluctant to move on, it's a cap space issue. It's not easy for them, but it's a potential win for Denver. What makes him so valuable is his versatility. He can effectively cover tight ends, something the Broncos have struggled with. Think back to how Brock Bowers dominated Denver in that first Raiders game. Hufanga also excels at laying hits in the backfield, which adds another dimension to his game. Watching his zone coverage and ability to track tight ends is impressive, but my favorite play of his pick 6 he had against Matt Stafford. Watching how he jumped the route and blew up the screenplay was incredible. When's the last time the Broncos had a safety who could pull off something like that? It's been a while. Hufanga's ability to read the play, cut through the pressure, and take it to the house would be a game changer for this team. If we're talking about moving on from PJ Locke, replacing him with a player of this caliber makes that transition so much easier. And here's the kicker. According to Spotrac, Hufanga's salary would only be around $12 million. The Broncos, with the wealthiest owner in sports, have plenty of financial flexibility to structure this deal. They could take the biggest cap hit this year or spread it out over time since Hufanga is still young. This move would free up the 20th overall draft pick to target other areas of need, like significantly upgrading at tight end or running back. It seems like a no-brainer. Zach Wilson case is getting interesting now. Sean Payton himself said his goal was to help Wilson secure a big contract, and it seems like that's about to happen. If Wilson signs a lucrative deal with another team, the Broncos could be in line for a third-round compensatory pick. That's a win, especially if Denver spends less in free agency than it loses. So where could Wilson land? Teams like the Raiders, Jets, or even the Vikings might take a chance on him. Maybe he gets a big deal as a backup or a fresh opportunity elsewhere. Either way, it's another moving piece that could shape the Broncos' offseason strategy. It's pretty clear Zach Wilson isn't coming back to Denver. At this point, the best-case scenario is for him to land a big contract somewhere else, giving the Broncos an extra third-round draft pick. And let's be honest, George Payton loves draft picks. He sees them as more tools in his arsenal, and he's going to maximize the value of every single one. Now, let's talk about some even better news. One of the most respected special teams coordinators in football, Darren Rizzi, looks like he's on his way to Denver. This is a huge deal. Rizzi has been a consistent performer throughout his career, with his special teams units rarely finishing outside the top 10 in any key category. He's proven he can motivate players, as we saw when he stepped in as the interim head coach for New Orleans during a tough season and managed to get them playing some of their best football. Imagine what Rizzi could do with players like Marvin Mims and Will Lutz. This is a coach who knows how to get the best out of his roster. After losing our special teams coordinator when Vic Fangio left, it felt like the Broncos might be left scrambling. But now, we've landed one of the best in the business. Darren Rizzi joining the Broncos is a massive win and could be a game changer for special teams. Now let me share a really interesting news with you. Myles Garrett publicly announced his trade request from the Cleveland Browns. He made the news drop at a time when the entire NFL media landscape is practically shoulder to shoulder at Radio Row, ensuring that this story gets maximum coverage. Garrett's decision to go public now couldn't be more calculated, as everyone in the league is watching and waiting for news to unfold. Now, this raises questions about Cleveland's plans moving forward. If Garrett is on his way out, could this signal a full rebuild or even a fire sale? If they're willing to part ways with Garrett, does that mean Deshaun Watson could be next? And what about David Njoku, who's also been rumored to want out? It feels like we're on the edge of some major shifts in Cleveland. Anyhow, NFL insider Diana Russini mentioned that a trade for Garrett could cost a first-round pick, 2 third-round picks, or even a package like 2 firsts, a second, and a player. Other plugged-in analysts have begun speculating about which teams might pursue Garrett. Interestingly, the Denver Broncos are one of the teams listed, alongside others like the Detroit Lions. On the other side, some argue that Denver's defensive line was one of the best in the league last season. With a core of young, hungry players who are only going to improve, why risk disrupting that chemistry or giving up valuable assets? This perspective suggests the Broncos may not need to make such a blockbuster move to continue building their already strong defense. So what do you think, guys? If you had to choose one position to upgrade through the draft, what would it be? Tight end, linebacker, or wide receiver? Would you be comfortable with the Broncos targeting a safety like Talanoa Hufanga? Or would you rather focus on other areas like running back or tight end first? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm excited to see what you all think.